They were the first bottled bourbon. Tell me what that means, because I'm thinking, does that mean like all the other ones were put in bags, or like, I mean, what did they put it in? Were they just walking around with it in like the test tubes or something? I mean...
Hello and welcome everyone to The Mashup. This is your place for all things bourbon talk. As always, we're your hosts, Michael, Anthony, and Steven. Hello, fellas.
Good evening. What's up, Anthony?
Going on?
So, guys, before we get started with this bottle today, we actually have a pick we're going to discuss. The pick comes from an event called Bourbon and Beyond. Can we explain this to people that may not know what this is?
Oh, sure. So 2020 has been a tough year for all of us, but probably no tougher than the people who are planning these large outdoor events and music festivals and artists who don't get to perform. Bourbon and Beyond is something that's become, in the last couple of years, a very amazing festival in Louisville. It has brought some amazing musical acts like Pearl Jam, Guns N' Roses, many to name. And so it was canceled in 2020, of course, but the pick that we have today comes from the 2019 festival. I actually have a quick story about that. So at the time when that festival was being promoted, I actually had the opportunity to go to Kroger and meet Fred Minnick in person. He was promoting the festival, and I talked to him for quite a while. It was actually quite a big highlight for me. I was excited to meet him, probably more excited than he was to meet me. He was probably like, who's this guy? And so we talked about the festival, and he actually gave me some free tickets to it, and I couldn't go. I was so bummed out I couldn't go because I had a lot going on with my kids, with 2 young kids. And so I gave the tickets away, and I gave the tickets to 2 people, and they had the best time that they've ever had. And they both thanked me profusely for giving me those tickets. So I'm sad that I missed out, but I hope to go to it in the future.
Well, the bottle we have today is an Old Forester single barrel pick. On the bottle, it has Bourbon and Beyond Barrel B.
All right, yeah. So Old Forester is one of those brands that has sort of been, I don't want to say they're an eroded brand by any means, but they're a brand that is very classic. They've been around for a long time. And the parent company is Brown-Forman. For those who don't know, Brown-Forman also has Woodford Reserve, Jack Daniels, even though we don't speak of that Tennessee whiskey, and what do we call it? Tennessee bourbon, Tennessee whiskey. But anyway, the Old Forester single barrel pick here was done for the Bourbon and Beyond Festival. It was part of the promotional picks that ended up at a lot of Kroger liquor stores and then also were sold at the festival. The release date on this was 2019. The ABV is 45%. It's 90 proof. There is no age statement on the bottle, but listening to and reading a lot about Old Forester's barrel program, the pick's probably somewhere between 3 and 6 years old, but again, can't say for sure. The mash bill on this one is 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. And the MSRP on these picks, depending on where you get them, is anywhere between $40 and $50. Now, I want to pause for a minute and also mention that if you look at the Old Forester catalog of all the stuff that they offer, of course, their standard bourbon is 86 proof. Their barrel program has been evolving since this pick came out. They now offer their picks at 100 proof, and they also offer them at barrel strength. And then they also have the Whiskey Rose Series that is, the 1910, 1920, 1897, and so on. So they have a very crowded space, to say the least, when it comes to the stuff that they offer. So what we're tasting today is a single barrel pick at 90 proof.
Some of you all might see this same bottle in your store around you. And just remember that because this is a barrel pick, what you try, what you buy, or what you have is going to probably taste a little bit different than what ours is because it's a single barrel. So we're trying one from Bourbon and Beyond. Yours might be from whatever the name of the liquor store or restaurant that you're buying it from, where you are. So whatever we say, don't be afraid to try your own.
Yeah, definitely. There's quite a bit of variation, a lot of different store picks and single barrels. So that's a really good point.
If you like to know what you're getting, a regular small batch or a regular thing on the shelf, because those are typically going to taste the same, every time you buy a bottle, right? The single barrels could vary, and you might get a nasty one time and a really good one, and you might not ever get that really good one again. So
yeah. Speaking of bottles, this bottle is pretty basic. How do you guys feel about it?
looks like it's bottom heavy. Like it's got a real thick glass at the bottom. Kind of looks like an ashtray at the bottom, but then
it has a 3/4 of an inch of glass at the bottom.
It's got a cork. You know how I felt after last week or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about screw tops. So if it's got a cork, it's aces in my book.
There you go. I actually like the little border around the label. Kind of looks almost like a Greek key, and so my eye gets drawn to that labeling. But it almost looks a little bit more has a retro feel to it. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. The bottle looks a little
they're pretty consistent with their bottles, right? So like all of those Whiskey Row bottles and this bottle, they all pretty much look the same shape at least. So if you're looking to collect them all, you can line them up next to each other, and they're going to look exactly the same, with the exception of the label. So,
they call their series Whiskey Row. Which bottles are contained within Whiskey Row?
I know that there's the 1897, 1910, 1920, and I'm not sure what the other one is.
Isn't there like a Statesman or something like that? But I don't know if that's in the Whiskey Row. I know there's a bottled in bond one, and then one of them's like 115 proof, and then I think there's one of them that's like a 93 proof. I don't know what those numbers are, so what the ages are on those, the years on those, but there might be another one too. I'm not sure.
I think it's 1870 is the one we were forgetting actually, but I don't know if they actually carry different age. I don't think any of them carry age statements. I think the only variation is there's some variation to the mash bill.
And the proof.
And the proof, of course.
So, yes. Anthony, you're our house historian here as far as bourbon goes. This says they were the first bottled bourbon. Tell me what that means, because I'm thinking, does that mean like all the other ones were put in bags, or like, what did they put it in? Were they just walking around with it in like the test tubes or something?
Listen.
The wooden barrel on their back.
Yeah. Were they walking around with the barrel on the strap to their back like it was a backpack? Like that thing, have you seen that brewmate makes a tap on the back of your, like, carry it around like a backpack, So
Yeah. No, honestly, as much as I've read about bourbon and different research and stuff, I'm so jaded. I think most of it's marketing. So,
and if we've learned one thing about every bottle we've had, every one of them has said they were the first of something, right? They were the first weeded, the first cocktail, the first bottled. Like we said, we don't know if there's any way to prove any of this stuff, but they clearly. It's big in the bourbon world to say you were the first to do something. Clearly, right? So I want to be.
Of course, everybody wants a story, and so if you got a story that's appealing, at the end of the day, when someone asks me what I think about certain products, I'll be like, they'll be like, what's a good product I can get off the shelf that's not allocated or anything else? Sometimes I'll recommend a 1910 and 1920. They're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, it's just good bourbon. Just drink it. Let's stop talking about.
Weller can say that they're the first. Weller can say they're the first to put a cheap screw top on the top of their bottle. So.
The first foil cap.
Yeah, the first foil cap. These guys are the first ones to use a black label. I don't know. So, anyway, I guess we should probably go ahead and try it, right?
Pouring it, the color right off the back, I'm going to say is an amber.
It's darker than anything we've had, I think.
Especially for the age. I wouldn't expect for something to be as young as it is.
But did we talk about the age yet?
It's non-age stated, but we believe it's 3 to 6.
Yeah, 3 to 6.
So,
I agree with you guys. One characteristic of Old Forester bourbon when you see it is a lot of it is darker. Its characteristics, so that's spot on for that.
Well, typically, if I've got condiments sitting in my refrigerator that are older than the bourbon I'm trying, that's usually not a good sign for the bourbon, right? At 3 to 6 years, right. I think I've got some salad dressings that are sitting in my fridge that are older than this.
For the notes, right off the bat, I get ethanol right off the bat. Yeah, it's because of the age.
I get some nail polish remover on that.
Yeah. There's a hint of caramel. I'm getting brown sugar, and there's a faint note of apple in there.
I don't disagree with any of that. The only thing that I might get a little bit of that I'm interested in is I'm very partial to the darker fruit taste, like a cherry note or anything like that. And I'm feeling like there might be a faint hint of that, but I'm not sure. We'll see if my nose is deceiving me once we taste here.
Well, there's no wood. Like, I don't think any of us get any kind of wood, which is probably pretty on par with
the age.
Younger drink,
Yeah.
right?
All right, let's go for the sip. I was gonna say it has a little bit of a bite to it when you drink it.
It does, and I was going to say, like, I know we haven't talked about this much, but, like, I'm not a big person on mouthfeel, but it's very thin. It's not something that really coats the mouth very much in terms of when you taste it. It just doesn't sort of stick to anywhere.
It has a long hug. Like, it's still, I can still feel it going down.
It has finish that, I don't know if you really want to call it finish that, I guess if you like the taste of it, the finish is good. But what are you thinking about the taste there, Michael?
I think it's got like a real bitter taste to it. To me, like it doesn't have any kind of finish. I've got a taste in my mouth right now, a little bit, but it's not a real pleasant one. I don't know. Ugh.
Yeah, I have to agree. The coming back to the age, the finish is very, very short. It kind of reminds me of the Evan Williams White Label. It's a great bourbon, but it ends very quickly after you drink it. There's no real long finish.
I got to tell you, when I heard we were trying Old Forester, I was thinking birthday bourbon, but after that drink, I got early times.
Hey, don't disrespect early times like that.
Believe me, now that I've finished this off, I'd rather have an early times right now.
Yeah, I think that what's happening to me is there's so many great flavors here that just fall off so quickly. Like, to me, I did pick up a little bit of that. I don't even want to call it early cherry because that's a disrespect to, like, a really nicely the vanilla cherry type of bourbons that you get. But I taste a little bit of that, but it's for such a short amount of time, and it just falls off into nothing. It just, like, kind of goes somewhere where you're, like you said, where you're tasting something that you don't even know.
Do you think they've gotten similar reactions from people about that, and maybe that's why they decided to change their barrel pick program to 100 proof and barrel strength to kind of, I don't know, maybe get a little bit more flavor to these things than what they were getting out of these 90 proof ones?
I definitely think so. I mean, listened to a couple other podcasts. I've read a little bit about their barrel program, and one thing that seems like is clear is when you look at the folks that are in charge over there, Jackie Zycam, for example, she's been on record saying that she's been a big proponent of trying to let people taste whiskey as it was intended to be tasted, which is out of the barrel, because as someone who's a master taster, that's what she gets to do. She gets to go around and taste out of barrels. And so if you're going on a barrel pick and you're tasting out of a barrel, or essentially, and then it's getting watered down to 90 proof, I can imagine. So I've not yet had any of the barrel strength. I do have a bottle of it, and I've not opened it yet. Maybe we can review that at another point in time, but maybe that's where it's at. Maybe that's going to have the flavor that we're looking for. One of those sort of uncut, unfiltered picks.
Companies swing and miss, right? I mean, sometimes they do, and they just, they got to figure out a way to make it better, right? That's what you do as a company. So I'm not saying this is a swing and miss. Somebody might like it, but they obviously changed it for a reason. They thought they could do better, I guess.
Well, Anthony, you had mentioned that tasted a hint of cherry. Is this the same build as their birthday bourbon? Because as we know, their birthday bourbons are known to be cherry bombs, essentially. I was just wondering if you just let this sit longer, does this become a birthday bourbon?
Well, they blend a lot of different barrels into what makes birthday bourbon. So, I mean, it's possible it contributes, obviously, with birthday bourbon carrying an age statement that goes, a lot higher than this, usually 9 to, what's the highest? I can't remember what the highest is. I think it's 13 or 14. I'm not sure. It usually sits within that range. Yeah, I do think that it ends up being, or one of these barrels could end up being part of the mix. So I do think there is some variation in mash bills that they're using, but I don't know the mysteries of birthday bourbon. I guess if I was more of an industry insider, I might know it. But yeah, they definitely, I had the 19 birthday bourbon was like a straight fruit bomb. And you guys, I told you that when I tasted that one, it was just straight. It was just I don't even know how to explain it. It was just amazing. I loved it.
So this is from Bourbon and Beyond Barrel B, Warehouse O, Floor 1. I've done some side-by-sides as far as bottles and different floor levels. and you kind of get a sense of the differences you can expect from a low floor to a high floor. What's your experience been like with the different floors?
I will fully admit that as much as I love whiskey and as much as I've read about it, I've been more of a person that gets attached to warehouses. Like, for example, Buffalo Trace has different warehouses, and, for Russell's Reserve picks from Wild Turkey, certain people like, Warehouse D, or there's a pick they haven't seen in a long time, so they'll be partial to one warehouse. I really don't have a lot of experience with Old Forester, but, and I guess when you get higher in the warehouse, right, and you're going to experience more heat versus lower in the warehouse, and you don't know how much the barrels are cycled, and you don't know what flavor characteristics are going to be brought out. And so I think if this spent a lot of time in the bottom of the warehouse, I would expect it to kind of have more of a
bottom of the warehouse taste.
Like dollar flavors, I guess. Yeah. Would that be the right way to put it?
Well, Michael and I, we had several different Buffalo Trace picks we had tried at one point. And some, were lower floors and some were higher floors. And I believe we found that the lower floors had more of a floral, kind of lighter taste. Yeah. Versus the higher floors where you have a lot greater heat that, the bourbon can go in and out of the barrel more. They were a lot more complex and richer. So I wonder what this would be like a different pick on, let's say, a floor, 5 or 6 versus a 1.
Yeah, and what you just said is so correct, because if you have it on a lower floor, it's going to age slower as well. So maybe
that is true.
What we're tasting is if it's lower in the rickhouse and it's only 3 years old. If it was higher in the rickhouse and it was 3 years old, it might taste more variation there. I mean, again, we're not, like we told you guys from the beginning of this, we're not experts in this. We're sort of figuring it out as we go. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, we've gone on a couple tours to some other places. We tried one of the craft distillers, Peerless, in Louisville.
I was going to bring this up.
And they only have it's one floor maybe, essentially, with 2 or 3 little racks of barrels, so they get almost no variation because their warehouse is simply no higher than probably 20 feet in the air, and so they get probably very little variation. And then we've been to Maker's Mark, where they actually take the time to rotate their barrels from one floor to the next, right, so that every one of their barrels over a 6 or 7 year period spends the same amount of time on each floor. But
Buffalo Trace does not rotate.
Right.
Because each product is a specific warehouse and specific
from what I understand,
level.
Makers does it, and they say they're the only ones that do it because it's time-consuming, number one, to have to move all those barrels that are really heavy, get a lot of employees to do that. And so obviously that's going to cost a lot of money to do. And so if you don't move them, and this thing, like you said, has sat on for 3 years on the bottom floor, yeah, you probably didn't get a whole lot out of that.
Yeah. Another thing to bring up too is, and whoever's tasting, you don't know how many barrels they're offered as part of that program. They might have to pick from 3 barrels. There might not be a lot of variation. So, but that's an important point. I go back to what you said earlier, right? When you're buying a single barrel or you're buying a store pick, there's going to be variation. When you have somebody like Maker's Mark saying they're rotating barrels everywhere in the warehouse, Maker's Mark's goal is to have a consistent product because they sell the heck out of that product, right? That consistent product that they have and how they blend it, and they make it consistent. So that's really the push-pull, the dichotomy that you got there is the consistency versus the uniqueness.
So
when that uniqueness turns out great, okay, but when it doesn't, no good,
Right, yeah, you could have gone to Bourbon Beyond and had a pour of this, and you could have had, this is Barrel B's pick, so you could have had Barrel A's pick at the concert and been like, man, this is really good stuff. And so when you got to Kroger, you saw it, you're like, oh man, that's what I had at the concert, and then you pick it up and take it home and you realize this isn't what I had, but of course at the concert maybe you had 3 or 4 other ones, and at that point you were feeling pretty good and maybe they all tasted great, but but yeah, so every one of them's different. If you can't tell, I haven't been a big fan of this one yet, so
it's amazing with the product because this is like we said, the age 3 to 6, but then if you look at a product like Peerless, where they're still up and coming, their 4-year, I guess they're up to 5-year now, is really good. It's young, but you can tell, when they bottle it, let's say year 8 or 10, it's going to be a very good bourbon. I'm not sure I'm getting the same vibe from this bottle.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I mean, that's if you look at some of the craft people, like Peerless is considered craft, even though they've got great accolades and things like that, versus Old Forester, which is laying down, thousands of barrels. I think that's why they have those different variations in the Whiskey Row series and everything else, because if something doesn't fit the profile of birthday bourbon or some of their other limited releases they've been putting out, then they mix it into one of the others and they go for that flavor profile. So I think that unfortunately I don't want to say that we're pawns in the game here, but we're just trying what single barrel pick and not finding it to be super appealing, but knowing that if this barrel ages down the road, it could end up in any number of different places where it's part of a small batch blend and it could taste a lot different, right?
Yeah, totally. So, guys, would you pass, try, or buy this bottle?
No, I'd pass.
I would pass as well. It's just too young.
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say this, we're trying this bottle. Like I am the one that bought this bottle, and I bought it, and I let it sit there, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And I said, yeah, it'd be a good one to open and share. And now I'm kind of thinking it would have been better if I kept it sealed. And maybe,
So we're starting to really think about what kind of friend we are now. If you decided to open this for us, so
what's that?
What kind of friend are we if you decided to open this for us? So,
well, hey, when I bought it, it was sought after, and I've even seen these things. People are kind of after them, like the 90 proof single barrel picks. People seem to like them, and so who knows? I don't think it's wasted dough on friends, so it's nothing like that. It's just one of those things where, yeah, if I had to do all over again, am I going to go out searching for Old Forester single barrels like I would for Russell's Reserve or something else? Absolutely not. I would actually be a pass as well.
So, Anthony, have you seen on Facebook how crazy people are getting for Weller 12 lately? I mean, I don't know if it's because maybe they haven't come out in forever and nobody sees them on their shelves ever and anywhere anymore, but like people will do anything. I don't know, maybe there's a bunch of people that are getting into bourbon, so if y'all are listening that are getting into bourbon and you hear the name Weller 12 and that's what you want, but people seem like they are trading their first kid sometimes for a Weller 12.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's lately, I think it's actually probably due to COVID, but usually Weller 12 would come out fairly well in mass. You could get it at different places, but you can't get it now. And people on secondary have kind of gone crazy, but then other people have gone goofy the other way. So we saw Angel's Envy picks released this week in Kentucky, where people were, going to Total Wine and other stores and buying Angel's Envy for $99, and they're turning around and posting it on the secondary saying, I would like Weller 12 plus $75. And I'm thinking to myself, like, are you crazy? You just paid $100 for this bottle. It has no value. For Weller 12, like, I watch it go from $150 to $175 to, now it's $200. And I think we even saw somebody post, $250 the other day?
Yeah, something like that, $250. And I think it, somebody bought it pretty quick. I know I was able to trade away a Weller 12 for something that I felt like had a whole lot more value than a Weller 12. And it was funny because, Anthony, you and two other people that I know that saw my trade online said, man, people will do anything for a Weller 12 right now. So it was just funny how there were multiple people that kind of saw that and thought, man, this is a different world right now.
Oh, it most certainly is. There was a guy that messaged me today asking if I was after such and such bottle because I had posted in a local group. And I said, I'm not going to buy anything from him. I said I'd be open to trading. Are you looking for anything? And guess what he was looking for?
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows the big W12.
Yeah. I said, well, I'm sorry, I can't help you out. But, that's because I like Weller 12. I have a couple bottles of it, and I like to have it around. So I'm not looking to trade it. But, man, it is just it's gotten out of control here. And I think that, we don't want to, we can't get into it, but, there's been a lot of chatter about national secondary groups shutting down. So I think that's only exacerbating what people are thinking about. Like, I won't be able to get this even if I want to pay for it,
The guy I traded with, he gave me a Blanton's Gold, which, of course, they're sold in the United States, but very, very rarely and only just recently. But But mainly overseas. He told me, yeah, he's like, I've been chasing a Weller 12, and I just got into bourbon a couple months ago, and I've been chasing a Weller 12, and I thought, how did you already have a Blanton's Gold, but you didn't have a Weller 12? So, it just kind of shows you that even the stuff that's overseas is easier to get than stuff that sometimes maybe, people find around here. So, I don't know. It was interesting, but I felt like I got a better end of the trade on that deal. But if you like it, you like it. And I do too.
Oh, yeah. No, and I think, honestly, here's the way I view it. If two people made a trade, both got what they wanted, and were happy with it, then it's all good. I mean, anybody that's out there, you're trying to make a deal, you should never feel like you're giving anything up to get what you want. And I feel like in that particular case, if this guy was chasing Weller 12, he had a Blanton's Gold, you wanted Blanton's Gold, you're both happy, it's all good, right? That's what bourbon's about.
And then also on Facebook, I've noticed in the single barrel world that Buffalo Trace single barrels store picks have been coming out in mass as well. So it's interesting to see, like, I guess maybe these companies put them out, when you go to pick them, they don't bottle them all. They wait and bottle them all at the same time, and so then they send them out to stores, because it seems like I've seen 4 or 5 different stores in the last week or two advertise having a Buffalo Trace store pick out right now. And so, I'm sure that's probably how Buffalo Trace does it in order to, try to save money and be most efficient by waiting, because you don't want to bottle it. You don't want to spend the time bottling everybody's stuff, at different times. So anyway, if you're looking for something like that, and Stephen and I will vouch for Buffalo Trace store picks all day, those are probably out there. So get on their Facebook and get on some liquor stores and restaurants and bars and see. You can probably find some.
And with that, thanks for listening to this week's edition. Please like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at TheMashupKY. Also, let us know your thoughts on this bottle in the comments section. Until next time, keep it neat.